everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are here for a new recent reads video, but I'm doing a little bit of a twist on that idea. Basically, these are books that I've read since doing my favorite books of 2023 video. I will link that up in the cards above if you are interested. So let's just go ahead and jump into this. I'm very excited to gush about all of these books. So first up, we have In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. This is TJ Klune's latest release. This is yet another whimsical adult fantasy. This one's more sci-fi specifically book. This is his follow-up to The House in the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door. I think that's what that book is called, which are two books that I absolutely adore. The House in the Cerulean Sea is definitely like a top all-time favorite, and so I was very, very excited going into this one. And just like with those two previous books, I went into this one not knowing like anything about the plot. The only thing that I knew was that this was some kind of Pinocchio retelling. So the basic synopsis, I don't want to give too much away because I really just want you guys to dive into this and just love it as much as I do. But we have Victor, who's a human. He was raised since he was a baby by this android named Giovanni. And then later on in his life, Victor salvages these other androids. One of them is a nurse robot who is sadistic and kind of psychotic. And then we have a Roomba-like little small vacuum robot named Rambo who just wants love and affection. So we have this adorable found family aspect going on, and then Victor comes across this android named Hap. And someone on Bookstagram described Hap as like a daddy version of Megan, if you've seen the horror movie Megan, and like that is strangely accurate. So that's how I'll describe him as well. So this is like an epic science fiction adventure story, but it's also special and beautiful. There's cozy elements because of the found family aspect. There's also a romantic element. Like there's just so much going on in this story, and I think TJ Klune did an incredible job of combining all of those elements with like the Pinocchio retelling element as well. I just didn't want to put this book down. I adore his writing. I find myself savoring it anytime I pick up one of his books. Like I just don't want it to end. And this is also a book that will make you think a lot about humanity, whether that be the good, the bad, or the ugly of it. And I just know that this is a book that I will be thinking about for a very, very long time. I love that TJ Klune's books do that for me. So yes, please pick this up as soon as possible. But first I would highly recommend picking up House in the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door. Those are completely different universes, but I would definitely recommend picking those books up first because they were published first. So let's get into some romance novels now. First one I want to bring up is Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. Now, I will admit, this is a book that I didn't think I would ever pick up. I had read The Love Hypothesis, loved that book. And then I read the 3 novellas that Ali Hazelwood published, I guess sometime last year. I gave all 3 of them 4 stars. They are not special stories by any means. And I don't know, I just felt like, okay, maybe Ali Hazelwood really isn't for me. Maybe Love Hypothesis was just like a one-hit wonder for me. But I saw Bree from In Love and Words specifically rave and rave about this book, specifically some months back, like maybe even a year ago at this point. And so I trust Bree. I usually give books that she recommends like 4 or 5 stars. We clearly have a very similar reading taste. So I thought that I would go ahead and give this book a chance, and I'm so glad I did because I ended up giving it 5 stars. I really think that Ali Hazelwood shines writing full-length novels. I don't think the 3 novellas was like the best career move for her. That's just my opinion. We have B, our heroine. She has just gotten hired by NASA to work on this like crazy project involving the brain, basically. And it turns out that she will be co-leading this project with Levi, our hero. They went to grad school together some years back, and she is convinced that he hates her guts. And kind of rightfully so. There were definitely some incidents in their past that I could see why she would feel that way. But it turns out that he's actually been in love with her for years, and I am a sucker for that trope. I think that Ali Hazelwood wrote that kind of trope in one of the novellas, now that I'm thinking about it. So I just absolutely loved this. I find Ali Hazelwood's writing to be very addictive. I did not want to put this book down. The star of this book for me is absolutely Levi, our hero, because the way that he pines for and loves Bee is truly next level. My God, like, I couldn't help but fall in love with this fictional man. I wish that he was real and I wish that he was mine. My God. I also really enjoyed that this has a You've Got Mail vibe to it. You'll just have to read the book to see what I'm talking about. And I really liked the plot. I thought that it was interesting without being too like scientifically complicated. I could follow what was going on, you know, because I'm not that smart when it comes to math and science. But yeah, this was just a home run for me. Gave it 5 stars, and I'm so excited now to go into Love Theoretically, which is her next book. Next is a book that honestly completely knocked me on my ass. I did not expect to love this book as much as I do, and that is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I have to thank Brie from In 11 Words again for recommending this book, because I had read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez last year, once again from Brie's recommendation, and I loved that book too. I gave that one 5 stars, but for me, this book is on a completely different level, and it seems like I'm not the only one that thinks so. Like, this is just an incredible romance. My goodness. So we have Brianna, our main character. She has recently gotten divorced. She is a doctor. She specifically works in like emergency medicine. And then we have Jacob, our hero, who has just started working at the same hospital that Brianna works at. He also works in the emergency room. She's immediately annoyed by him just because she gets a really bad first impression of him. It's kind of funny. But then Jacob writes her a letter, and it's a fantastic letter. And Brianna realizes that he's actually this very sweet man. He has anxiety. One of the things I loved about this book was the anxiety rep. It felt very relatable, though I don't personally have the level of anxiety that Jacob has. So yeah, she just starts falling for him through writing these letters back and forth. There's also a plot having to do with Brianna's younger brother needs a kidney transplant. And it turns out that Jacob is like a perfect match for her brother. And so Jacob ends up donating his kidney to her brother. So that's also a big part of this story. So this is one of those romance stories that I truly love reading from time to time, where the hero and heroine fall so hard for each other without having even like kissed each other. They just have such a deep emotional connection, and you truly feel it through the page. And I cried like a little baby towards the end, because there's so much angst in this relationship, mainly having to do with Brianna's trust issues with men, and that is something that I can very much relate to. And I just adored, like, especially the last like 2 hours of this audiobook, I would say, were just like absolute perfection. By the way, you have to check out the audiobook because it is a dual narration. Zachary Weber narrates Jacob's POV, and I can't remember who narrates Brianna's POV, but I really loved her narration as well. Just a home run, like I said. A perfect romance novel, in my opinion. Definitely a new all-time fave. I cannot recommend it highly enough. And now I'm very curious to explore a bit more of Abby Jimenez's backlist. Also, I just want to point out that usually, from what I understand, Abby Jimenez's books have absolutely no steam, no heat. However, we did get some steam in this book, and it was very well done. That's all I'll say. So in August, I kind of got back into my Jessa Kane bullshit era, and I'm living for it. So a new novella from her that I devoured was called Debutantes Curse. And when I tell you, this is one of the most bonkers plots ever, but I was just so endlessly entertained. We have our heroine, and she has a near-death experience. This woman saves her life, who like may or may not be a witch. We don't know. But in exchange for her saving her life, she now has this curse on her that she will never find true pleasure unless she is having relations with 3 men at once. So there's that, and it just so happens that there are 3 men in her life who are obsessed with her. So she grew up as a ward for this older man. He seems to be kind of like a mafia boss, so he's one of the men that's like obsessed with her. And then this guy who's around her age, who's kind of like her stepbrother, is also obsessed with her. And then there is this other guy, I think his name was Mateo. I can't remember names to save my life, but he was like her childhood best friend, and he's obsessed with her, and he finds his way back into her life. And so yeah, it's an MMMF romance. And I was just endlessly entertained. My God, Jessica Kane, she is just so batshit crazy. The things that she writes, like, what an imagination this woman has. That's all I'll say. But I just had so much fun, and I could not help but devour this in one sitting that I had to give it 5 stars, and I had to bring it up in this video. Next up, we have Grimm and Barrett by Juliet Cross. This book is so bittersweet to me because it's the 6th and final book in her Stay a Spell series. This is a series that has truly meant so much to me. It is absolutely my favorite paranormal romance series ever to date. And this book just didn't disappoint in terms of, you know, being the finale. Plus, we finally got Henry and Clara's romance. I feel like their relationship has been built up for quite a few books in this series, and what can I say, Juliet Cross just nailed it. There are so many things that I love about this romance. For one thing, I loved that Clara was the one to pursue Henry, because it was very obvious that Henry had very strong feelings for her, but like he just didn't know how to go about pursuing her. And so she kind of took matters into her own hands. And I love reading romances like that every now and then, you know, where the heroine is the one to pursue the hero, as long as the hero is, you know, just as obsessed with her, right? Jen mentioned in her review that this is a story that's centered around the idea of just running headlong, arms wide open into love. And I think that that's just so accurate. And you just can't help but smile while reading this book, especially like the first half, where they're admitting feelings for each other and falling for each other very quickly. Though, I mean, they pretty much already loved each other by the beginning of the story. But yeah, this book just made me so insanely happy. I also loved the paranormal plot that we had going on, mainly having to do with Henry and how he is a Grimm. And there's different kinds of Grimms. Gareth, who is the hero of Always Practice Safe Hex, he's also a Grimm, but he has different powers. And Henry is more of like a necromancer. And that was just so interesting to learn about, like Henry's connection to the afterlife, essentially. And yeah, that was just like really interesting. I just thought that Juliet Cross completely nailed this, and I'm absolutely obsessed. Definitely one of my top favorite books of the series. So last but certainly not least, we have The Duchess Takes a Husband by Harper St. George. This is the 4th and final book in her like Gilded Age London series. I can't quite remember what the series is called. I always forget every time I talk about this series. But this is about Camille, who is now a dowager duchess. Her husband, the Duke, passed away sometime before the book starts. And she is a character that's been kind of featured throughout the whole series. I believe in book 1, we see her get married to this Duke. And this Duke is not only a lot older than her, but he was definitely abusive to her in a lot of different ways. And so she is left feeling, you know, very lost about what she wants to do with her life now that her abusive husband has passed away. And she's trying to find happiness in any way that she can. And so then we have Jacob, our hero. He is the half-brother of the hero from book 2, which is The Devil and the Heiress, if you're familiar with the series at all. And he's a self-made man. He runs this like gentleman's club that is now a club that's also open to ladies. He owns this club with a couple of the other heroes of the series. And so he's always been fascinated by Camille, and Camille finds that she's now attracted to him as well. And so they enter this deal. There's a lot of other plot things going on, but basically Camille agrees to be Jacob's fake fiance if in exchange he will give her sex lessons, which you guys should know that is one of my favorite tropes. I have a video all about my favorite books that feature sex lessons, so I will link that up in the cards above if you are interested. So this book ends up putting a really interesting and beautiful spin on the teach me sex lessons premise, because Camille ends up having a lot of trauma from having to be intimate with her husband, the Duke, who, like I said, was abusive towards her. And so as she is trying to be intimate with Jacob, they both realize that, I mean, she's terrified of intimacy now. And so I adored the way that Jacob helped her heal from that trauma. And so through Jacob helping Camille heal, and through the two of them bonding with each other and falling for each other, the intimate scenes in this book are some of the most beautiful sex scenes that I've read in a long time. And I just didn't expect that level of connection, I guess, between these two characters going into this. When you tell me that a book is gonna have sex lessons, I just kind of expect something fun, and then they end up falling for each other. But this just ended up being so much more than that, and it was just absolutely stunning. So swoony. Jacob is just like the sweetest cinnamon roll hero. Love him so much, and I loved seeing Camille finally get her happily ever after. All right, guys, that's going to be it for some books that I have been absolutely obsessed with lately. I would love it if you would leave a comment down below. If you want to tell me about books that you have been obsessed with, I am always looking for more book recommendations from you guys. Especially, by the way, if you have gothic romance recommendations, please leave a comment, because I am desperate for that vibe right now that we're getting into the fall season. With all of that being said, I would love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!